I speak 9 languages. That's what the young black girl said proudly across the table from a billionaire. The millionaire burst into laughter, mocking her, doubting her, certain she was lying. But just minutes later, the entire restaurant would fall silent, forks frozen midair, as she revealed a secret talent so powerful it humbled the man who thought money could buy anything. This is the story of how knowledge silenced arrogance and left a billionaire in shock. 9 languages? The girl said with a spark in her eyes, her voice firm, proud, and full of confidence. In the middle of a luxurious restaurant in downtown London, a young black woman named Amara sat across from a wealthy businessman, Mr. Whitman, a man known for his fortune, arrogance, and belief that money was the only true power in the world. Amara, in her simple yet elegant outfit, looked like she didn't belong in that glittering world of diamond watches, gold-plated cutlery, and champagne glasses. She wasn't dripping in jewelry or wearing a designer label, but she carried herself with a quiet dignity that made her presence impossible to ignore. While others flaunted their wealth, she carried something far more valuable: knowledge, discipline, and determination. Mr. Whitman had invited her to the dinner as part of a charity program where students from underprivileged backgrounds met with millionaires. For him, these dinners were more about appearances than genuine care. He often enjoyed the feeling of power they gave him, the way young students would sit nervously across the table, overwhelmed by his wealth and accomplishments. He expected the same from Amara: polite conversation, perhaps endless gratitude, maybe even nervous silence. What he didn't expect was her boldness, her ability to meet his gaze without fear, and the confidence with which she spoke. When Amara declared, "I can speak 9 languages," the millionaire couldn't help himself. He burst into laughter, shaking his head so hard that his gold watch clinked against the table. He leaned back, smirking, his booming voice echoing across the room. "Girl, you're joking. 9 languages? Even professors don't manage that. Surely, you're exaggerating. Do you really expect me to believe such nonsense?" His laughter wasn't kind. It was dismissive, mocking, almost cruel. The surrounding tables, filled with wealthy guests and curious onlookers, turned their heads. Some chuckled with him. Others looked at Amara with pity, assuming she had embarrassed herself in front of a man of power. But Amara didn't flinch. She didn't lower her eyes. She didn't stammer an apology. Instead, she sat taller, her expression calm and unshaken. There was a quiet fire in her eyes, the kind of fire that comes from years of struggle and resilience. She wasn't here to impress him with wealth or charm. She was here to prove that intelligence and determination could stand proudly, even in the face of arrogance. Whitman, however, thought it was a game. 9 languages, huh? He scoffed, sipping his wine. "All right then, little lady, why don't you show us? If you're telling the truth, prove it. Let's see if your words are more than empty air." The air in the restaurant grew heavier. The waiters paused near the tables. Some guests leaned in closer, anticipation building. It was no longer just a conversation. It had turned into a challenge, a battle of pride. Whitman's smirk grew wider, certain that he had cornered her into humiliation. But Amara simply smiled. She had been underestimated her entire life, and she was no stranger to disbelief. What Mr. Whitman didn't know was that she wasn't bluffing. She was ready. Little did he know, he was about to be proven wrong. Whitman leaned back in his velvet chair, a smirk forming across his face. His eyes sparkled with disbelief and arrogance as he tapped his gold ring against the stem of his wine glass. "All right then," he challenged, his voice dripping with mockery. "If you really speak 9 languages, show me. Impress me. Let's see if you can turn those big claims into something real." The restaurant staff turned curious. Waiters lingered nearby, their trays suspended midair, while guests at nearby tables leaned subtly closer. The air filled with a charged silence, as though everyone was waiting for a duel to begin. Amara didn't flinch. She didn't shift nervously in her seat or look down in embarrassment. Instead, she adjusted her posture, straightened her shoulders, and folded her hands neatly on the table. When she spoke, Her tone carried a calm confidence that made the entire room hold its breath. She began with French. Bonsoir, monsieur. C'est un honneur de vous rencontrer ce soir. The words glided from her lips effortlessly, her accent flawless, her tone elegant, carrying the rhythm of a native speaker. A French couple dining a few tables away looked at each other in surprise, nodding approvingly. Without even pausing, she transitioned into Spanish, her voice flowing smoothly into another melody of words. El conocimiento es poder, señor. Más fuerte que todo el dinero del mundo. The sentence was sharp and passionate, her pronunciation so natural that a Spanish waiter nearby raised his eyebrows in astonishment. Whitman's smirk, which had been broad and mocking, wavered slightly. His arrogance was beginning to bend under the weight of undeniable truth. Then came Arabic, and her voice carried a richness that turned heads even further. Her tongue curved perfectly around each syllable, each letter pronounced with precision. A Middle Eastern family dining at the corner table froze, their eyes widening in shock, then smiling in admiration. Amara translated gently for those who didn't understand. Language is a bridge between hearts, not just words. By now, Whitman's smirk had vanished completely. His posture shifted, his once relaxed figure stiffening as he sat upright in his velvet chair. The restaurant seemed frozen in time. People around them had stopped eating, forks suspended mid-air, wine glasses untouched. All eyes were locked on the young woman who had transformed the atmosphere with nothing but her voice. Amara didn't stop. She flowed seamlessly into Mandarin Chinese, the tones crisp and precise, then Russian, her voice rolling with a depth and authority that startled even a businessman nearby who spoke the language. She carried on with Italian, her words light and lyrical, then German, sharp and strong, followed by Swahili, warm and melodious, before finishing with Hindi, her pronunciation rich and resonant. 9 languages, one after another. No hesitation, no stumbles, no mistakes. Each language fell from her lips like a river flowing into the next, unstoppable and beautiful. By the time she finished, the silence shattered into something extraordinary. The room erupted into quiet, respectful applause, a rare sight in such a prestigious place. Even those who didn't understand the words had felt the power of her voice, the weight of her knowledge, and the confidence in her presence. The restaurant manager, himself a native French speaker, hurried over, his face glowing with shock and admiration. "Mademoiselle," he exclaimed, "your pronunciation, it is perfect. I would have believed you were born in Paris." He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that only deepened the astonishment in the room. Whitman's laughter had long since died. His smirk was gone, replaced with an expression of disbelief that bordered on awe. His hands trembled slightly as he set his wine glass down, his arrogant mask cracking under the truth he could no longer deny. For the first time that evening, the man who thought money was the highest power had been humbled by something priceless. His voice came out weaker than before, almost stammering. "Oh, who taught you all this?" he asked, his tone carrying a mix of confusion, admiration, and shame. It was no longer a challenge. It was a question born from genuine wonder. Amara smiled softly, her lips curving into a quiet, almost humble expression that contrasted sharply with the grand atmosphere around her. "I taught myself," she replied, her voice steady, yet carrying the weight of a lifetime of struggle. "I grew up in a poor neighborhood where opportunities were rare. My mother worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table, and my father passed away when I was still very young. We couldn't afford private schools or expensive tutors, but we had something that no one could take away from us, a small public library. That library became my sanctuary, my escape, and eventually my classroom. Books and the internet became my teachers when the world had no teachers to offer me." She paused for a moment, her eyes distant, as though replaying the memories of those long nights in her mind. "I used to sit in the corner of the library until closing time, headphones on, listening to foreign words over and over again. At first, my tongue would stumble, my mouth resisting the unfamiliar sounds. But I was stubborn. I repeated each syllable until my tongue obeyed, until my voice could carry the rhythm of another culture. It was lonely at times, but I kept going because I knew one thing. Knowledge would be my ladder out of poverty. Amara went on to explain how she had built her skills not just through study, but through people. In her neighborhood lived immigrants from across the globe, families who spoke Arabic, Mandarin, Spanish, Swahili. While others passed them by, Amara saw an opportunity. I would offer to help them with English, filling out forms, practicing conversation, even reading letters, if they would teach me their language in return. I didn't have money for lessons, but I had time, I had patience, and I had a hunger to learn. She looked directly at Whitman, her gaze sharp yet compassionate. Every language I learned wasn't just about words. Each one was a doorway into a new world. It was a story, a culture, a way to connect with someone I might never have understood otherwise. When I spoke French, I wasn't just saying words, I was stepping into the history of a people. When I spoke Arabic, I wasn't just pronouncing letters, I was carrying centuries of poetry, tradition, and pride. Every language was alive, and every time I mastered one, I felt like I had been given a new heart, a new perspective. Her voice trembled slightly with emotion, but her eyes burned with an unshakable determination. While others saw only barriers, she said firmly, I saw doors waiting to be unlocked. And each language was a key. I may not have wealth, I may not own skyscrapers or diamond watches, but I have something you cannot buy. I have the power to connect with people across nations, to speak to their hearts in their own tongue. That is worth more than gold. The restaurant was utterly silent, every ear tuned to her words. Whitman, who had built an empire on the belief that everything could be bought and sold, felt something he hadn't felt in years: humility. He stared at her, stunned, his chest tightening as the realization sank in. For the first time, the millionaire who believed every person had a price realized that he was sitting across from something truly priceless. The silence at the table was heavy, pressing down like a weight no one dared disturb. The clinking of cutlery, the chatter of nearby diners, all of it had faded into nothing. It felt as though the entire restaurant held its breath, waiting for the man of wealth and arrogance to speak. At last, Whitman cleared his throat, his voice lower and softer than before. You know, he began, his tones stripped of mockery. I've built skyscrapers, bought companies, and made billions. I've sat in boardrooms with presidents and signed deals worth more than most people will see in their lifetime. But in all my years, in all my so-called triumphs, I have never felt as small as I do right now. His eyes shifted down to his hands, fingers drumming nervously on the tablecloth, as though confessing such vulnerability was almost painful. He leaned forward, his expression far from the smug confidence he had worn earlier. I thought power was measured in money. I thought success was about what you own, the empire you build, and the fear or respect people show because of your wealth. But you show me something different tonight. You've shown me that knowledge, real knowledge, the kind that bridges cultures and hearts, commands respect in a way money never can. It's not bought, it's earned, and it leaves an impact that no currency could ever match. Amara listened quietly, her face calm and unreadable. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk or take satisfaction in watching him shrink. Instead, she simply nodded with a grace that reflected both humility and wisdom. When she finally spoke, her words were soft but powerful. Money can buy comfort, sir. It can build houses, buy cars, fill bank accounts. But language, knowledge, and kindness, she paused, her eyes steady, her voice carrying like a steady flame. Those build bridges that last forever. They connect people in ways that outlive us. A building may crumble, fortunes may vanish, but the bonds we create through understanding, that's eternal. Whitman exhaled deeply, his shoulders slumping, the arrogant weight he carried dissolving before her eyes. It was as though years of pride and ego had been peeled away in a single evening. For the first time in a long while, perhaps the first time in his life, he felt genuine admiration for someone who had nothing material to offer him. No business deal, no profit, no gain. Only truth, spoken in the voices of 9 different nations, carried by a young woman who refused to be diminished. He sat there silently, humbled, realizing that what he had dismissed as impossible had just redefined his understanding of power. And in that moment, Whitman, the billionaire who believed money ruled all, finally understood that he was in the presence of something greater than wealth: wisdom, courage, and the priceless strength of a determined heart. That night changed everything, not just for Amara, but for Whitman as well. The man who once believed that money was the highest form of power left that restaurant with a seed planted deep in his heart. He didn't just pay for dinner with a swipe of his platinum card. He made a decision that would ripple far beyond that evening. Whitman established a scholarship program in Amara's name, one dedicated to underprivileged students with dreams bigger than their circumstances. It wasn't a hollow gesture for publicity. This time, it was real. The program covered education, travel, and language studies, opening doors for children who had never even dared to dream that such opportunities could be theirs. He often told his wealthy associates, "If one girl with nothing but books and determination could master 9 languages, imagine what hundreds more could do if we gave them a chance." As for Amara, her life transformed in ways she had once only imagined during late nights at the library. She went on to become a world-renowned linguist, her name recognized in academic halls, universities, and global conferences. She traveled from continent to continent, not as a tourist, but as a bridge between cultures. Her speeches weren't just about words and grammar. They were about unity, about the beauty of human connection that transcends borders. She stood on stages in Paris, Nairobi, Beijing, and New York, sharing her story with audiences who were left inspired and humbled. Amara proved to the world that a girl who once studied under flickering streetlights, with worn-out library books and borrowed headphones, could rise to global recognition. Not because of wealth, not because of privilege, but because of perseverance, discipline, and an unshakable belief in herself. Whitman, the man who once mocked her, became her greatest supporter. He often told anyone who would listen about the night a young black girl silenced him. Not with money, not with titles, not with power, but with words spoken in 9 different tongues, each one carrying the weight of her struggle and the strength of her spirit. "She reminded me," he would say, his voice softer, more thoughtful than people remembered, "that true wealth isn't counted in dollars. It's counted in knowledge, in courage, in the power to touch hearts and bring people together." And every time he spoke those words, he knew he wasn't just talking about Amara. He was talking about the lesson she had given him, a lesson that changed the course of his life forever. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful video. Thanks for watching.